And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gents. It's about Casanova from Orlando, Florida, on this awesome and international podcast, Good Wine and Great Laughs, the podcast for wine lovers, ladies and gents, summer movies, reviews, and hot topic discussions. Ladies and gents, I'm your boy Casanova. If you are new to my YouTube channel, welcome to Casanova. And what I do here every Saturday morning at 10 a.m., I have the wine of the day, ladies and gents. Shortly, I'm going to open this wine. I'm going to taste it. I'm going to give you some information about the wine, and I'm going to give the rate that I think this wine deserves. During the summer months of June and July, I take a break of hot topics and I do summer movies reviews. So any movies that come new on the movie theaters and any movie platforms, I will watch it and I'll let you know what I think about the movie. And for after the summer, come back to the hot topics. And if hot topics are always topics that can affect our lives directly or indirectly, ladies and gents. So if you like wine, if you like some movie reviews, and if you like hot topic discussions, this YouTube channel is for you. And if you like the work that I do, ladies and gents, all I ask for you are only three things. Please subscribe, click on the like button on every video that watch from this YouTube channel, and share any video that watch with at least 5 people you know. I appreciate your support, ladies and gents. So thank you very much. So today is Saturday, November the 15th, 2025. And the weather here in Orlando will be with mainly sunny skies, highs of 80s and lows of 57. This past Monday and Tuesday was very cold here for Floridians. They were shaking like a salt shaker, but this week and the coming week is going to be back in the late 70s and beginning of 80 degrees over here. All right. So before I talk about the topic of the day, ladies and gents, I have to talk about the wine of the day. So let's talk about, got another wine from Portugal, ladies and gents. This is called the Cab Fruit Driven. It is a red wine, ladies and gents. As you can see here, it says a red blend, vintage of 2019. So let me see here, let me see. Alright, it says right here, red wine, grab your cab and enjoy the ride through this fruit-driven red wine. Notes of fresh fruits with cassis, sweet black cherries, and hints of caramel guide you to a well-balanced and smooth wine. Sit back, grab your cab, and fast or slow, enjoy this best in life. Enjoy the best in life. I'm correct that. Once again, this is a product of Portugal, ladies and gents. It's a vintage of 2019, and alcohol percent of this wine is 13%. And there's a warning right here, contains sulfites. And also there's a QR code in the back that you can check it out. Now, for this QR code, probably some information about the wine. So easy to open. See right here, it is. You don't need a corkscrew for this one. It's over here. Let me take a bite of this nice, delicious. I just baked some Brazilian cheese bread. That should be enough. Let's see. Just for the record, if you ask for the past 4 episodes, I'm gonna have a Portuguese wine because I went to this Brazilian supermarket right here in Orlando, and they have a lot of Portuguese wine with a good price. As you know, this economy is crappy, so and I gotta budget my money. Okay. All right, ladies and gents. It is a good wine. Definitely rich in tannins. You can feel right your tongue right away. But it's, well, of course, I have my water right here because I explained before. Every time that I drink wine, it has rich in tannins. I have to keep the drink of water with it, so I don't have that dry mouth sensation later on. But it's a good wine, ladies and gents. I definitely give a 9 for this one. It's pairing perfect with this Brazilian cheese bread. It's gonna be good. So once again, the picture is gonna be available on all my social medias, ladies and gents. If you wanna look at it on your wine stores, you can go to my social medias and go to see a clear picture of this wine of the day. All right. So, and the topic of the day today, ladies and gents, for the season 11, episode 16, Congresswoman Grijalva is finally sworn and ready to vote on Epstein files. I'd like to give credit for us PBS News, the Legal AF, and Ari Melber. And one thing that I have to say, I don't know, to prompt of you. So if you come directly to my YouTube channel, go see my episodes come straight, no problem. But if you listen to my podcast on Spotify and other podcast platform, Spotify was holding my episodes, claiming that the background music that I use was, I did not have the authorization to use it. But I've been using this app that I use for music for the past 5 years, and I have a problem. So I have to put in my appeal. And now this week, finally, our episodes that were being held is now available, ladies and gents. So if you miss episode 12, 13, and 14, and now 15, then you go to Spotify and other platforms. You can go back, and now it's available for you. All right. So enough talking. Let's watch these videos. And at the end, I always do what I always do. I give my 2 cents about what I think about this situation. So, it is showtime.
The chair lays before the House a communication.
The Honorable, the Speaker, House of Representatives, sir. I have the honor to transmit herewith a copy of the Certificate of Election received from the Honorable Adrian Fontes, Arizona Secretary of State, indicating that the special election held on September 23, 2025, the Honorable Adelita Grijalva was duly elected representative in Congress for the 7th Congressional District, State of Arizona. Signed sincerely, Kevin F. McCumber, Clerk.
Damn it.
Will Representative-elect Grijalva and members of the Arizona delegation present themselves in the well? And all members will rise. And the representative-elect will raise her right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God.
I do.
Congratulations, you're now a member of Congress. Without objection, the gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure to rise today to congratulate our newest colleague and fellow Arizonan on her swearing in as a representative of Arizona's 7th Congressional District, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva. Congresswoman Grijalva has concentrated her career on issues associated and advocating for students and supporting families. As she follows her late father's footsteps, and boy, those are some footsteps, especially with those bolo ties. Wow. I have no doubt that she will bring to the halls of Congress the same energy that has defined her years of public service. As Dean of the Arizona Congressional Delegation, I wish to congratulate Congresswoman Grijalva and welcome her to the United States House of Representatives. I now yield to my friend from Arizona, Mr. Stanton.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, and thank you to Congressman Gosar, the new Dean of Arizona's State Delegation. It has been a minute since we've all been together on the House floor. Looking for cobwebs around here. As Dean, Congressman Gosar replaces the late Congressman Raul Grijalva, one of the most impactful leaders in Arizona history. And now with great pride, I rise today to do something we have waited 50 long days to do, exactly 49 days too long, and that is to introduce our colleague from Arizona, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva. Since September 23rd, the people of Arizona have been waiting for this day, and the excuses for the delay have changed seemingly daily. First, they said they need an election certificate, though one isn't required. Then they wanted to make sure there was enough pomp and circumstance. Then we were informed about a non-existent Pelosi precedent. At one point, the speaker went on television and said, quote, "Bless her heart, she is representative-elect, she doesn't know how it works around here." Bless his heart, because here's how it should work. Let's call it the Adelita Grijalva precedent. When the American people vote, this chamber respects their will and seats them immediately.
That's right.
Politics should never come into play. Mr. Speaker, Congresswoman Grijalva is a native Tucsonan, the granddaughter of a bracero who came here from Mexico, the youngest woman ever elected to the Tucson Unified School Board, serving 20 years, then a Pima County supervisor fighting for working families, affordable housing, early child education. She brings that same fight to Congress. The people of Arizona's 7th District placed their trust in her, and today that trust is rewarded. And her first act of Congress will be a powerful one. She will be the 218th and final signature on the discharge petition to force the Trump administration to release the Epstein files.
Release that file! Release that file! Let's go!
Justice and accountability for hundreds of victims abused by rich and powerful men. She is a smart, principled fighter through and through, Mr. Speaker. It is my honor to welcome and introduce to this chamber Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva.
Muchas gracias. Good job. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much. Thank you to my colleague and friend, Congressman Stanton, for that kind introduction, and to the entire Democratic delegation from Arizona and the delegation that stood here with me that has supported me throughout this process. I rise today the proud granddaughter of a bracero, a hardworking Mexican immigrant who came to this country for a better life, and I stand as the proud daughter of a U.S. congressman, a man who spent his entire life fighting for justice, equity, and dignity for the most vulnerable. From working as a vaquero to serving in Congress in just a single generation, that is the promise of this country. That is the America I want to raise my 3 beautiful children in, Adelina, Raul, and Joaquin. Stand up, baby. Look at them. They, along with my amazing husband Sol and my wonderful mama Ramona, are here with me today. Muchas gracias por su apoyo y tu amor. And thank you to la gente of Southern Arizona for making history electing me the first Latina, the first Chicana from Arizona to ever go to Congress. Este momento es histórico para nuestra comunidad. Es un honor ser la primera latina en representar a Arizona en el Congreso y les aseguro que aunque soy la primera, no será la última. And while we celebrate this moment today, our American promise is under serious threat. Basic freedoms are under attack.
Right.
Healthcare premiums are skyrocketing. Babies are being ripped away from their parents by masked agents. We can and must do better. What is most concerning is not what this administration has done, but what the majority in this body has failed to do. Hold Trump accountable as a co-equal branch of government that we are.
Exactly.
It has been 50 days since the people of Arizona's 7th Congressional District elected me to represent them. 50 days that over 800,000 Arizonans have been left without access to the basic services that every constituent deserves. This is an abuse of power.
Right.
One individual should not be able to unilaterally obstruct the swearing in of a duly elected member of Congress for political reasons. Our democracy only works when everyone has a voice. This includes the millions of people across the country who have experienced violence and exploitation, including Liz Stein and Jessica Michaels, both survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. They are here in the gallery with us this evening. Thank you for being here.
Oh, man.
Just this morning, House Democrats released more emails showing that Trump knew more about Epstein's abuses than he previously acknowledged. It's past time for Congress to restore its role as a check and balance on this administration and fight for we, the American people. We need to fight for our immigrant communities and veterans. We need to stand up for our public schools, children, and educators. We need to respect tribal sovereignty in our environment. We need to stand up for LGBTQ+ rights, because that's what the American people expect us to do. Fight for them. That is why I will sign the discharge petition right now to release the Epstein files.
Let's go! Release this shit! Let's go!
Justice cannot wait another day. Adelante, mi gente. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Michael Johnson is
Under
mad.
Clause 5 of Rule 20, the chair announces to the House that in light of the administration of the oath of the gentleman from Arizona, the whole number of the House is now 433.
Michael Johnson is mad, ladies and gents.
Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, and more particularly Donald Trump's continued role in covering up the scandal and being involved with the scandal. At least that's the implication from 3 new emails that were released by a bipartisan, meaning Republican also, committee, the Oversight Committee, just today as the government is about to reopen. The Epstein embers are aflame again against Donald Trump, against the backdrop of Ghislaine Maxwell trying to get her sentence commuted, get out of jail now card. New information that the House Republicans who have been briefed by the Department of Justice about the Epstein files, it's been revealed that they're worse than they were, than was what first expected, especially about Donald Trump. As Representative Adelita Grijalva of the 7th District in Arizona finally gets sworn in today with the reopening of the government, and she's going to be the 218th signature on a petition to move closer to getting the Epstein files released to the American people. 3 new emails, and their implications are simple. Donald Trump was involved with girls underage, or at least women who were trafficked by Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein. It was acknowledged in 2011 in an email exchange between Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump, as well as some other revelations that have just come out. I'm going to give you the information and the analysis. I'm going to give it against this entire backdrop, and then you can read for yourself the emails that have just been released. We'll put them up on Legal AF Substack. All right, let's start with the emails, and then we'll get to the rest. So the emails that have been released, here's the one that really goes to the lies that Ghislaine Maxwell told to Todd Blanche from the Department of Justice in order for her to try to get her pardon. Remember that interview a couple of months ago? I'm going to play you a clip that shows you she is lying. She lied throughout most of that interview, if not all of that interview. Here's the one that hangs Donald Trump. This is Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. She's known as GMAX. Saturday, April 2nd at 2011. I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim's name blacked out. Spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. I'm not quite sure what that means. Ghislaine Maxwell says, I've been thinking about that. Really? Because you didn't think about that or remember that when you were questioned with softball questions by Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's personal defense lawyer, now number 2 in the Department of Justice. In fact, you denied that there was a close relationship between Epstein and Trump, or that Trump had ever really been at his house. Here you seem to remember not only was he at his house, but he was there for several hours with a victim who I have to presume is underage or pretty close to it. Let's play the clip of Ghislaine Maxwell piling up the manure in response to questions by Todd Blanche, lying under oath, called perjury. Let's play it.
Photographs of Mr. Epstein and President Trump together.
Yes.
And there's photographs of, I think you're in some of the photographs
Yes.
as well. Those all appear to be social settings.
Yes.
Do you,
That's my memory. There were social settings. I don't know Epstein's, if he had, whatever the nature of the president's friendship, if you will, or however you want to define that with Epstein, I was never witness. I think they were friendly, like people are in social settings. I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall that.
This is terrible for Donald Trump, because in real time, back in 2011, right? Years before he ran for office, in response to a lot of British tabloid press looking into the Epstein-Trump relationship, they start writing this to each other. Hey, we're worried about it. You know, the one person that hasn't said anything is Donald Trump. But he was at my house with an underage victim. Terrible. Donald Trump has denied having any relationship, despite all the photos and the videos. We'll play some of them here. He's denied any close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Called him a creep. As soon as he figured out he was a creep, he fired him from Mar-a-Lago. Now let's turn to that, because that's also a lie. Here's what the email exchange on the email exchange between Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein about Jeffrey Epstein being banned from Mar-a-Lago. It's actually worse for Donald Trump, because the implication in this email I'm about to read you is that Donald Trump knew that Ghislaine Maxwell was effectively a predator, treating Mar-a-Lago like a hunting ground, looking for girls, Epstein calls them, to bring them back to Epstein. And all that Donald Trump did about it was not report it to the police, not turn in Epstein to the authorities, not try to save and rescue the girls. He got mad at Ghislaine Maxwell and told her to stop, which indicates that Donald Trump knew that Ghislaine Maxwell was doing something untoward and wrong and predatory at his club. And yet the only thing he did was to ban or stop her. Now because he's sunk so low, he needs a convicted predator, a child sex trafficker serving 20 years in prison. He needs her to vouch for him. Here's what the email exchange says. This is in 2019. Starts with a reference to a victim whose name is blacked out, Mar-a-Lago. Then it says, Trump said he asked me to resign. I was never a member, ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. So let's stop right there.
Right.
This is a real-time email from Jeffrey Epstein writing, he thinks privately, right? Doesn't think this is ever going to see the light of day, to Ghislaine Maxwell, his paramour, his girlfriend, his business partner, his co-conspirator in the sex trafficking ring, and says, of course, Trump, knew about the girls. He asked Ghislaine to stop. I mean, what could be more of fingerprints of Donald Trump all over this child sex trafficking ring than this email? Now, there's another email that's going to get a little bit of press, and we've had Michael Wolff on Legal AF before. It's an exchange between Michael Wolff and Jeffrey Epstein at the time that they were, I don't know if they were friends, but certainly Michael Wolff was providing some advice to Jeffrey Epstein as he was compiling information to write a book like a journalist, some PR advice. And this is the exchange. Michael Wolff says to Epstein, December 15, 2015, I hear CNN is planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on the air or in scrum afterwards. This is now leading up to the 2016 campaign. If you were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it would be? Epstein says. Michael Wolff says, I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, which we know is not true, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. So here's like Michael Wolff sort of coaching a little bit Jeffrey Epstein about what could happen if Trump goes after Epstein in that way. And maybe we'll get Michael Wolff on to talk about what he meant, if he can remember from 10 years ago, what he meant in that particular email. Now you have all of that, which I believe the timing of the release was important here, by the House Oversight Committee. And let me remind you, this is a bipartisan committee, including Jim Jordan, including James Comer, and they voted to release these 3 emails. Now, I think the timing is obvious. You've got new reporting in the last 72 hours that Ghislaine Maxwell wants to try to get her sentence commuted. End her sentence, let her walk out of jail right now as a victim of this, and Donald Trump doing it. Look at all the pardons he's handing out like Tic Tacs. So you've got that. You then have the reporting and committees that are looking into it as to why she's getting the Beverly Hills Hotel or the Boca Raton Resort treatment in her prison. And why is the warden treating her with kid gloves? You have that going on. Then you've got the reporting that's come out that House Republicans have been briefed by the Department of Justice run by Donald Trump and have been told that the Epstein files are worse than were first suspected, that were earlier suspected. In fact, this is the reporting that's just come out. David Schuster, a journalist, has reported that a few conservative representatives with ties to the FBI and the Justice Department have said that the true details of the Epstein files are worse for Trump than previously reported. We know that Michael Wolff's already reported that there were pictures of naked girls or half-naked girls sitting on Donald Trump's lap. The lawmakers seem to include, it may include the 4 representatives who are willing to sign the discharge petition to get the 218 signatures to get the bill out of the House where it's stuck, House committee, to get it to the House floor to vote for the release of the Epstein files. That's where Representative Adelita Grijalva comes in with her swearing in, because she'll be the 218th vote. And the conservative or right-wing MAGA Republicans or conservative Republicans that may have been talking as part of David Schuster's reporting are Tom Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. And now you've got one of the byproducts of the reopening of the government is that Adelita Grijalva is going to get sworn in as a representative. And of course, we just had a great interview with her when she was on the air. In fact, let me play you a clip of her talking about the Epstein files. Let's play the clip.
For him to stop me from doing that, because we all know, this is why I know that this is about Epstein, because this speaker canceled votes and sent people home a week early in order to avoid having a vote on the Epstein files. So he has his marching orders from this Trump administration. Do not let that vote happen. He doesn't have a choice. We have a special coming up in November and another in December. What's he going to do? Have us wait all this time? We cannot continue to have this government shutdown because of some promise that was made to Trump in order to try to keep all those skeletons in the closet. Those things are coming out.
Billions of dollars of aid, entitlements to people are being held up so that Donald Trump's not embarrassed by whatever the Epstein files say about him and others. The survivors for Epstein have come out and called for you to be sworn in. Talk a little bit about that, Representative.
Yeah, I mean, I was very humbled because I have continued to say this is not just about justice consequences, legal consequences for everyone that's implicated there. It is about providing justice for the survivors of Epstein and being able to finally see that there will be people that are going to be held accountable for what they did to children and women. And they need to be, and I don't care who it is. And so, I hear a lot from pundits on the other side saying, well, the Democrats had access to that. Why didn't they, send them out? I don't know. I wasn't there then.
Right.
I don't care who's implicated. I don't care what party they're on. They deserve to have consequences, legal consequences to what they did.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference. This is the party of morals and patriotism, and we're willing to let the chips fall where they may. And that's without knowing what's inside of them. We know Donald Trump knows what's in the files because he was briefed by his attorney general back in May, and they were busy redacting his name in the off chance that these files were being released. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be released. There's a fight going on right now to get Volume 2 of the Jack Smith Mar-a-Lago report. So this is going to take on a whole new life. If Donald Trump thought that the scandal was dying down during the 40 or so days of the shutdown, it's back, everybody.
How about you, Gil?
You know,
Fire,
you
ladies
got
and
a
gents.
rotting, stinking, dead body in your closet. You know, it doesn't go away because you left the house for 40 days. It's still there when you get back, and that's what we're watching. We're going to continue to defend those victims of sexual abuse here on Legal AF. We're going to continue to defend our right to have knowledge about the impropriety, illegal conduct, depravity of a president. That is not going to go away. We'll continue to do our oversight here on Legal AF. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button, come over to the Legal AF Substack, where I will post the 3 emails for you to read as well. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak.
Donald Trump is in the Epstein file.
Yes, he is!
New emails released for the first time by the House Oversight Committee that show Donald Trump being discussed directly for his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein by Epstein and his now convicted conspirator, Maxwell. I'm Ari Melber, a lawyer, MSNBC anchor. I'm going to go through this right now. This is by far the worst written evidence we've had that ties Donald Trump to Epstein. The two have known to be associates and have known to had apparently a falling out. This is really the worst stuff we've seen, and it shows why Donald Trump possibly broke his vow to release all the Epstein files in transparency. I'm going to read to you what we have here. This is a big breaking legal news story, and then do some analysis. But first, let's start with the evidence. This is really striking. You don't always get direct evidence like this as a journalist or when lawyers and investigators look into things. But in April 2011, you have Epstein and Maxwell emailing. And you have to remember, this is back in the day. Many people thought emails then were much more secure, and they thought they were talking privately, and Donald Trump had not become a political figure yet. And Epstein, talking about his own legal problems, said, quote, and these are, again, released emails, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump." And then he refers to what the Congress has redacted as a victim and says, this victim spent hours at my house with him. He's never once been mentioned. And then in a bit of a cryptic reference, he says, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. They were talking about his ongoing history and problems. Maxwell, who has since been convicted as a sex trafficker, replies, "I've been thinking about that." This is damning stuff. You have to remember a couple things. One, Jeffrey Epstein was later charged for this elaborate sex trafficking operation, including of underage girls and other young women. And Donald Trump has steadfastly denied being either involved, and legally we can say he's never been charged, and these emails don't specifically define a crime, although they are bad for anyone in, well, really anyone, I was going to say anyone in public life or politics, but really anyone, period. And yet this goes farther than Donald Trump has ever acknowledged publicly. So right there you have a big problem for him and a question about what he knew. And then second, and I'm going to get into this, whether these new accounts suggest that Donald Trump or his aides have abused power in the Justice Department to cover up some of this stuff. Trump famously ran on vowing transparency, and releasing the Epstein files has held them back. Emails like this, even if they don't prove a crime, show why Donald Trump didn't ultimately want the Epstein files released. I'm going to read from the, let me see, because I've got a couple of the emails here and I want to go through the evidence. He has conversations with Michael Wolff, a writer who's profiled Trump. But before I get to that, on January 31st, 2019, you have an Epstein email that says, "Trump said he asked me to resign. never a member ever. This is regarding Mar-a-Lago, where there was a falling out, and Trump has publicly addressed that part of it. And then Epstein writes, quote, "Of course he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop," end quote. Now this is Epstein in 2019, when there was a lot more heat on him, saying that Trump knew about the girls, meaning knew about the kind of sex trafficking that Epstein did, whatever you want to call it. Epstein might describe it differently, and had asked Maxwell to stop. Now this is important for a couple reasons. Number one, in all fairness, if you were a lawyer for Donald Trump, you could argue that this kind of statement reflects a corroboration of something that Trump has publicly claimed, that they had this falling out and that he had basically told Epstein or Maxwell that he didn't want that type of stuff at Mar-a-Lago. Now whether that was for his own personal interests, reasons, business, getting caught, whether it ever reflected anything in his own history, we don't know, to be fair. But that is a statement of that. Trump had claimed publicly that he told Epstein to stop. Here it's Maxwell. And again, you could say that's different. If he said it was one person, it was another. You could also claim that Trump was referring to a history where he basically told Epstein's people, and Maxwell was the main person involved in this, later convicted for it, to stop. The flip side, though, of that is that's still a lot more knowledge than Trump has admitted. His denials are that he ever did anything wrong with Epstein or these women and girls, and that he didn't really know what was going on at the time. Here Epstein is saying, and it doesn't mean it's 100% true, but back in a private communication, he's saying that Trump did know, and he told Maxwell to stop. And a big question here is, why would Trump, if he didn't know anything, know so much about who to contact? Why did he know Maxwell was involved or was a co-conspirator? I want to turn to the release of these files. One of the interesting things in the Trump denial in this new story is the White House is saying it's bad that these files were out or the Democrats cherry-picked them. Fact check, false. These are some of the emails that are potentially the most damaging and newsworthy, but they're part of a larger file of about 20,000 plus emails.
Damn!
The Trump campaign in 24 claimed that he was going to release all the Epstein files. That would include this kind of stuff. People debate what that means. The files is their client list. But this is exactly what Trump ran on. He failed to do it. He refused to do it. And people can speculate as to why, but it's quite striking when you look at this story and the stakes and the involvement of all these important figures that Trump said he would release and then didn't. Now that 20,000 plus emails are released, including ones naming him, they're saying release is bad. Now remember, you might say, well, of course it's bad for him, but as recently as a few months back, Trump had claimed they wanted to get grand jury material or other material released. So they have been on both sides of this, and we are getting a lot more facts about why Trump apparently doesn't want these smoking gun emails released as it affects him. Now, the other piece of that is, remember, there may be other material in here that is good or bad for Trump. Lawyers would call that exculpatory if it helps you, and they can call that more damaging if it hurts you. But this goes much broader than Trump. If there are other people in these emails, prominent people, people linked to either political party, business, or whatnot, being named alone legally doesn't mean much. But if the government wants to have a full accounting and Trump ran on that, then you would release all this. And so it is really striking that we are learning in real time one of the obvious reasons Trump didn't want this stuff released. He's in it, and he's in it in a bad way. And even if it's not to a criminal level, he would have to explain, is this true, and why did Epstein and Maxwell discuss, as if it was just privately obviously true, that he'd spent hours with at least one victim? What was that about? What happened? Why did he seem to know how to contact Maxwell and others, if that was his goal, because he knew that there was an underlying problem there, whether he knew exactly all the details or not? And Donald Trump didn't just refuse to release this material. In his first year of this second term, he has claimed that stories that link him to Epstein are false or defamatory, unlawful. He's currently suing the Wall Street Journal from it first reported that he'd signed this very sort of, body or illicit birthday card for Epstein. Then the card came out from the Epstein estate, confirming the Journal's story, and he has that open lawsuit. The White House, remember, has retaliated against reporters of the Wall Street Journal over Epstein coverage. This is the sister publication of Fox News, owned by Rupert Murdoch. This is generally considered a business or right-of-center publication in its editorials, and yet Trump is going to war with them over this stuff. And so these new emails further corroborate his history, his links with Epstein, even if not criminal, while he goes and attacks those reports. That's really striking. Now, there's another legal piece to this that's a little more intricate, and I'm going to discuss that right now. which goes to how the DOJ under Donald Trump has both pushed secrecy for all of the Epstein files. A lot of the victims and survivors have spoken out against the government. Doesn't mean they want to be left, right, red, or blue, but they've spoken out against the way the DOJ has operated under Trump, against victims' rights, against transparency. Now remember, there was this very unusual interview with Maxwell, who is mentioned here. I'm just going to read this again. Epstein says, Trump said he asked me to resign, never ever a member there. To Mar-a-Lago, quote, of course he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop, asked Maxwell to stop. Maxwell is the only person ever convicted in this whole sordid case at the federal level. She is currently in prison. She got a more lenient shift when all this stuff was back in the news under the Trump DOJ. Leniency for sex trafficker or someone linked to pedophilia is quite striking. Most Americans obviously oppose that. And the suspicion was, and it's not to get into a total conspiracy theory, but the suspicion or question, and you have to look at the facts, is why did she get better treatment? And why did she have this unusual interview with the Deputy Attorney General, not someone involved in the original case, but Trump's former defense lawyer who has this top DOJ position? Well,
that part,
we've learned that's even more suspicious because Todd Blanche is the individual I'm mentioning, did this unusual interview, then she got the prison transfer. And in that interview, Mr. Blanche asked her questions that seemed to be exculpatory, positive for Trump, because she said, oh, I've never seen him there, yada, yada. Okay, now we have these files. The first thing you do in a federal probe or any big investigation like this is you go pull emails and texts. You don't have to get them only from the subject, you can get them directly from telecommunications providers. That's first step standard. So while I can't tell you for a fact what's in the DOJ's possession of the Epstein files, because they're hiding them, because they haven't released them, I can tell you that almost any competent investigation does that first. So we would expect a competent DOJ to have those files, to have the emails I just read you, and then some. And yet when Blanche interviewed Maxwell, and she said she'd never seen Trump do anything untoward, she said she'd never seen him around and any of this stuff, any competent investigator, if they were seeking the truth, would then present her with this email and say, well, why did you and Mr. Epstein email the opposite and say he spent hours with this person? Let me refresh your memory. And if there is an innocent explanation, then an honest investigator would want to hear that. You could speculate one. You could say, oh, she forgot. Yes, that was a day where it was true what she wrote at the time. Her and Epstein remembered that Trump with someone, but there was no crime occurred, or there was only a social interaction, or there was a massage, which might be a scandal for a politician to some degree, depending on who's providing it. In this case, if it's at Epstein's estate, you can bet it's controversial, but not a crime, legally. And remember, the investigators are supposed to be focused on the law and crime, not whether something is good or bad in politics. But Blanche didn't do that. And so what we see here, and this is the layers of the story, is
here we go.
The famous cliche, the cover-up is worse than the crime. Well, we don't know what the underlying crimes were regarding anybody here that hasn't been convicted, so I say that quite responsibly and carefully. But the cover-up looks pretty bad. If you're covering up for a sex trafficker, for a pedophilia ring, and then you go in nowadays and do this interview, and you don't use the available evidence that the Epstein estate has, that's in the email, which the DOJ should have in a normal probe, and actually look for the truth. So this raises big, big heat on Mr. Blanche and anyone else at the DOJ who might be involved in a cover-up or lenient treatment for Maxwell, if that is designed to reward or extort her help or potentially false, misleading, perjurious help to anyone, be it the President of the United States or anyone else. So that's a whole chapter to this that's actually quite detailed. This could come up in news coverage, could come up in how Trump answers for this. You have to know a little bit about how investigations work to appreciate what looks like a cover-up, but I can just tell you straight up, an honest, normal prosecutor would not conduct the interview the way Mr. Blanche did, not with this type of evidence, if it's available. And remember, they fired the prosecutor who actually won the case, who got justice for some victims, Maureen Comey. She happens to be related to FBI Director Comey, who's now under indictment under the Trump DOJ, a whole other story. She would be the natural person, or someone on her team, to do that Maxwell interview if it were for fact-finding. The increasing evidence is it was not. And right now we live in a world where people say maybe there'll be no consequences. Maybe they get away with everything, but the DOJ has rules. The United States government is bound by federal law, constitutional rules, and sooner or later, Mr. Blanche and others may have to answer for what they were really doing and why they did it this way. and we do a lot of interviews. I've had various Trump lawyers on my program. Happy to hear Mr. Blanchard's side of the story if he's willing to come on with me or anyone in public. He has been less than forthcoming about this. I have a couple other notes I want to get into here, and the Wolf email that I haven't read, the third one. So since we have a lot of new evidence information, I will read you this one. Again, this is Ari Melber, my YouTube breakdowns. You can always subscribe to get these reports and breakdowns on my YouTube channel. This next email is really striking. It is less substantively about the underlying actions and whether people were abused, because it's more about the later political spin, which is why I'm coming to it last, but it is one of the interesting ones released. And it's from Epstein to Michael Wolff, who, as I mentioned, is an author. He's written about the Trump administration repeatedly. He had a background history. And he says something unusual. Most journalists would not do this. You're not supposed to do this. He seems to think he knows what an outlet is going to ask then candidate Trump. And he's talking to a source about it, and then seemingly trying to help brainstorm or even plan how this would be dealt with. Now, to be fair, we don't know whether any of this was actually going to get very far. A quick check doesn't look like Epstein came up in the debate that night. We'd have to look deeper, and you could check everywhere to see whether anyone anywhere that day or next couple days asked Trump about it, which is hard to kind of confirm in real time. But Wolff says, quote, to Epstein, "I hear CNN's planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on the air or in the scrum afterwards," where they all talk in the so-called spin room. And Epstein says, "If we're able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be?" Now, we don't know then why Epstein would ask that, or if he actually, in fairness to Trump and everyone, thought he could get close enough to brainstorm an answer. We do know that they had a social history back in the day, but by this time they didn't have any public links. We didn't see them at parties and such. So in fairness, we don't know whether Epstein was just talking. You can't assume that that means he's going to execute it. But then Wolff gives this reply I'm going to read, quote, "I think you should let him, Trump, hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house," that's Epstein's plane, quote, "then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you." And then Wolff suggests something that is basically a type of blackmail. And that's interesting because, as I've reported and other people have discussed, Epstein has been described as a blackmailer. He received funds from various individuals, unrelated to Trump as well, that seemed completely out of whack with anything that you would get paid for in a business job. And so the question was that the evidence of his blackmail? I've got other videos reporting on that, but interesting that Wolff goes right to that mode and says, so you can hang him in that way, quote, "or if it looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt." And he goes on to say some other stuff, but that's someone who's a writer seemingly getting on the inside, not writing or reporting independently on the outside, but getting on the inside as if he's a partner with them. And he may argue that he plays both sides, or this is how he talks to people, but I can just tell you under journalistic rules, you don't advise people to conduct blackmail or how they can benefit. You try to honestly deal with them, and sometimes you have, tough or intense conversation. But if they ask for direct advice, political, financial, or whatever, you're not usually going to give it. You certainly aren't going to be brainstorming blackmail. I should mention, depending on how it's conducted, blackmail and extortion can be illegal, although this level of conversation wouldn't rise to a chargeable offense. But I'm just telling you how serious it is to go down that road. And the idea of, quote, generating a debt based on triaging or misusing information on Trump, or having knowledge of something that Trump might be minimizing or lying about at a level of his ties to Epstein, is really striking. So look, I've just run through a lot of that off top, as we say. It's an evolving story. I want to reiterate, these are smoking gun emails for anyone covering this. These are some of the most damning emails, written evidence, receipts from Epstein to his convicted co-conspirator discussing these issues and Trump. Also, they do not in and of themselves prove any crime. And when you report these kind of stories, you always look at the denials. The Trump denial here was basically reiterating what he said in the past. And he has every right to publicly debate and deny anything here. But he's also left a lot of holes. And that is not just saying, pick sides in a debate. If you're going to do fair journalism and really try to make sense of the facts here, you have to look at the evidence and take into account what the possibilities are. But the reason why these are really bad and smoking gun style emails is not that they necessarily prove a whole crime, although they could, and you have to investigate or look at that seriously, but that they give a lot more credence to the suspicions facing the Trump administration about the secrecy on the Epstein files. They also cut against Trump's attacks on the Wall Street Journal and other outlets for reporting what they said they had, documents, receipts, sources, that he was in the Epstein files. There's reporting that he was warned by the Attorney General that he was. And they then explain, potentially, why Donald Trump, who ran a campaign vowing to release the Epstein files and vowing transparency, and Pam Bondi, who claimed she had key files and material on her desk and ready to go, why that all reversed. You know, it's become a real commonplace thing these days to be more cynical and say, well, why does this matter more than that, or people get away with things? I'll close with this point. People have always gotten away with things. A lot of crimes remain unsolved. The public interest in this sordid tale of Jeffrey Epstein matters because the victims matter. It matters if the federal government is being misused to further give leniency to one of the sex traffickers. And then there's also the political intrigue. You could say Democrats have had more interest in this when they thought it would hurt Trump, that they haven't always shown the right vigor and excitement or a sort of alacrity to deal with this. And you could say Trump's been very selective. But if you put the politics to the side and you try to look at the evidence, sometimes the political heat, or even we know in cases, sometimes the media's interest in something increases the intensity. But the intensity is still the what? If it's for the truth, if it's for justice, then even knowing all that stuff is going on, this can be a step forward. And if the government under Donald Trump is providing secrecy, leniency, or worse, cover-up for people involved in this, that's a story that matters. So I'm Ari Melber signing off. You can subscribe to keep up with me.
All right, ladies and gents, welcome back. Now let's have my 2 cents about that. All right, now first of all, salute to Adelita Grijalva. I think that's her right pronunciation of her name. And to me, she's on fire, and she had the 2 victims from Epstein right there in the gallery. Outstanding. And for those that still believe that Trump has nothing to do with that, if you still want to believe on the shenanigans and the bullshit, it's on you. I believe that definitely he's deep on those. And one thing about Epstein, that's a couple, I think it's on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. There's some kind of documentary about the whole Epstein thing, the investigation that happened here in Florida, on West Palm Beach. I recommend, if you want to refresh your memory about the whole case, ladies and gents, look for this documentary. If I'm not mistaken, it's on Netflix. Check that out, and you're going to see some particular details and the prosecutors and all the people, the lawyers that try to deflect everything. Now, one thing that I learned when I watched that Epstein was not a stupid man. He has some way, somehow, I would get my understanding that he has some videos, and he has some, because he has all these female young girls that were coming to the house, and the people that were coming, people of power, politics, judges, and all these people were there. He had evidence just in case if he needed to blackmail them to do whatever he wants to do, give money and give whatever, And then another thing that's clear, that this guy that they mentioned here, that went to have an interview with Miss Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, and then all this life, of course she's going to lie to get out of jail, because she was in the maximum prison and being treated like she deserved, like any other sexual predator that should be in jail. And then all of a sudden, after the interview, she transferred for a lesser prison, and now she's basically in a 5-star hotel, getting whatever she wants, And then let's talk about that Trump wants to pardon her. So, and for these, all the Republicans that don't give around the bushes to not talking about, like I said, Miss Adelina, stay almost 50 days for her to be sworn in. And meanwhile, we have 2 Republicans that soon they got elected and have been certified. They swore in real quick. So I was talking to a co-worker this week, and I say, I don't care personally, and I believe that the majority of the Democrats think this way. I don't care right now who's on that list. Political party. If there is any Democrat there, he or she deserves to be caught and should be thrown in jail. Period. Now comes to the Republican side, the Christian party, the party of family values, and all this, but they are full of shit. Because next episode, ladies and gents, I was watching this video that breaks down exactly what it is and what I think. The hypocrisy of the Republicans, because there's a lot of them involved in this situation. But they claim they are the party of family values, to keep the family, the Christianity, all that. Nothing but bullshit. So stay tuned for the next Saturday, ladies and gents. I got some good episode coming related to Epstein files and the hypocrisy of the male Democrat and Republicans. The Republicans. The bunch of them being caught on sexual abuse of minors and so forth. So stay tuned for next Saturday. So, but finishing my point, ladies and gents, I truly believe that Trump is deep in this. They are trying to do everything possible to delay and brush off under the table, under the carpets. And I mentioned that before. That's this movie called The Apprentice, ladies and gents, that talk about the rising of Donald Trump from the late 70s to the 80s to the 90s. Check this out, because give a lot of information about who Trump really is. Deflect the lies I do not know anything about. I said that before. Many things, situations that Trump happened. Oh, I don't know. I never heard about that. I don't know this person. I don't know the situation. I do not know. You're the President of the United States. You have briefings, and you have, if you want to, even though if you do not know, I know people bring information to you. You just don't want to read. You just don't want to be informed, and then probably try to deflect once again. So I truly believe that Trump is deep in it, and that's a whole lot of my people. And I want this to come out to light, because God does not like ugly. For all this Christian conservative that talk about Jesus and God, what is in the dark is going to become to light. And now I believe this is the time, after all those years, that finally whatever is in those files come to light. And hopefully next year, that's the vote's gonna come, but probably in 2026, the midterms elections, if the Democrats sweep like they swept the election this past November 4th and take the House and Senate, I truly push that they release everything. The only thing could be redacted on those files are the names of the victims. Anything else is in there, let it be released, show to the public, and then you're going to see the House of Cards from the White House, because they're desperate right now. They are really desperate, trying to give an excuse for all this shenanigans that's coming. The shit about to hit the fan right now, and it's going to stick. All right? So this is my 2 cents here, ladies and gents. So please be safe, be kind, and be blessed. If you like this video, please click on the like button. If you are new to my YouTube channel, please subscribe and share this video with at least 5 people you know. I appreciate your support. So salutes. And I see you next Saturday. Holla!